Testing. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? back, back up here online. Good seeing you. Good seeing you. Hope everybody's doing all right. There's no issues, and just living now. So let's get started a little bit. I know it's 8 o'clock on the dot. Not in my drop top, nor cruising the streets. Thank you, Usher. I'll make sure my stuff is situated before we get started. Uh, all right. Cool. Hope everybody can hear me. Hope everybody can hear me. Hope you can hear me. Look like everything might be straight. We'll see. We will see. We will see. All right. So, first and foremost, I want to welcome you to the Black Gentlemen's Club. It's a place where we have candid conversations about challenges that Black men face and how we can overcome them. So, tonight, we're going to tackle the law of short-sightedness, a principle that challenges us to look beyond the immediate to the potential of the future. So we're gonna talk about some key topics today, right? So our three key topics for today, or for tonight, shall I say? We will explore the nature of short-sightedness in our lives and its consequences first and foremost. Two, there's 4 signs of short-sightedness and strategies that we will talk about, and pretty much and how we can use them to develop a long-range vision in both personal and professional spheres, pretty much our sphere of influence, right? And then thirdly, or lastly, whichever one you want to say, success stories of those, really not really those, but of one person. We're going to use Wallow as an example because Wallow is a perfect example of how he went from short-sightedness to now having far-sightedness, be able to see beyond just today. All right, so I want to start off by telling you all thank you for participating in some of the previous episodes that we've done. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I want to say thank you for hitting that like button, subscribe. Thank you for all of those things. We couldn't do none of this without you, and we definitely appreciate your support and helping us, grow our channel. So let's talk about some short-sightedness. Once again, we're coming out of this book again, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. So short-sightedness, it often limits our growth, right? It's trapping us into a cycle of immediate rewards. But if we could shift our perspective to see long-term possibilities, what impact will that have in our lives? And then do you think it's possible to make that shift? So now I kind of want to hear from you, want to see exactly how has short-sightedness affected your decisions and what steps have you taken to overcome it? Because we're going to go deeper into these things. So for me, I'm gonna start with me. So how short-sightedness had pretty much affected my decision making. Like I said before, I used to be horrible at managing money, my own personal finances, right? Because not having, and then once you finally get some money, it's a different feeling. So you're thinking that you got money to spend on this, and that, and you're not thinking about tomorrow, not even about tomorrow, but about a couple of days down the line. How one decision now could affect everything later on down the line. It's a trickle down effect, right? So for me, I had to take steps of unlearning bad habits, of definitely unlearning bad habits. So that's how I kind of overcame mine. And we would go a little bit into it because some things from Law 4, which was a law of covetousness, excuse me, not law of covetousness, I mean law of compulsiveness, and then Law 5, Law of covetousness, kind of ties into this actual law. Like if you recognize the pattern over time, every law has kind of compounded upon the next, right? Or added to the next one. So we're gonna go ahead and go a little bit into it. Now, like I said before, Robert Greene, he had some toxic types that he talked about in Law 4. law of compulsiveness, right? Some of those toxic types, if you all can remember back then, like for example, hyper perfectionist, big talker, pamper princess, things like that. These behaviors or these personalities influence or can even exacerbate some of the short-sighted behaviors, right? So how can we navigate these challenges? Pretty much for better decision making. And so I'm gonna go into the toxic types that kind of, I ain't gonna say kind of, but pretty much might influence the way you may become a short-sighted individual, right? So the first one is hyper perfectionist. This person pretty much focus way too much on perfecting the details that they miss, you know, that so much that they miss the long-term consequences of their action. Somebody who's so worried about, did I get this right here? This little detail. Let's say, for example, you're trying to get from your house to the store, but you like to go a certain way. When you can't go that way, you lose your mind. Or not even just that. Let's say you have to turn in a paper, and let's say it's due on a Saturday or something like that. But today is Monday, and you've been stressing over this over the first paragraph for the past week. Well, for the past 5 days. Now it's Friday night, and it's due tomorrow on Saturday at 11:59 Saturday night. And you haven't got you got a 6-page paper due, but you only got one paragraph written down because you're so worried about how the introduction opens that you haven't even got your thoughts out on paper. So the long term consequences then begin to stress you out because you have not developed a way to think forward. Okay, maybe plan out, hey, I'll do the outline first. After I do the outline, well, let me do my research first, then do my research, then get my bibliography, then do my outline. And then I would begin to structure, do a paragraph at a time. Maybe do 2 paragraphs a night. However, you must need to do it in order to get six pages. But plan the things out and don't be so detail oriented into it after you have to go back through to add some more corrections or some more information, right? The second one, the second toxic type from Law 4 that may influence short-sightedness is the relentless rebel. Like I said before, this person, they might reject long-term planning as part of their defiance of norms, right, and authority, because the relentless rebel typically do not like to go along with the crowd. They like to try to be different. It's not a bad thing to be different, but then they intentionally try to do the opposite because they want to be unique. And with them wanting to be unique all the time, they're gonna always try to rebel against societal or social norms or authority in general. So that's one way. That's one other toxic type, right? That can influence short sightedness. Now the next one is the big talker. So the big talker promises grand visions, right? But they do it without considering the practical long-term steps needed to achieve them. And I see this a lot of times in the military. Um, we tend to have a good idea fairy. We call them TGIFs. Good idea fairies creep in and give somebody an idea that's a commander or first sergeant or some type of leadership, right? And then they then begin to say, "Hey, we want this done." Not thinking about how can we sustain what you're asking to be done. You didn't thinking about the sustainment piece of what you're asking. So now, is it feasible? It may not be feasible. But bit talker and hyper perfectionist is almost similar to a certain extent, right? Um, and then the next one is the pampered prince or princess. This so short sightedness kind of really this one and short sightedness are like almost the same. Excuse me, because this person expect immediate gratification, right, without the foresight or patience for long term rewards. So if I had to pick one of the toxic types that's really closely resembles or related to this law of short-sightedness, it would be the pampered prince or princess. See, now each of these types can, like, they fall prey to the pitfalls of short-sightedness. Now, what can we do to combat that? We would talk about that in, like, not this next segment, but the segment afterwards, right? So this segment we're about to go into is about how law 5, which is the law of covetousness, how does that affect how does that have an effect with regards to law 6, pretty much? So if you remember, law 5 was the law of covetousness. and that deals with your desire of having of wanting what you cannot have, right? Or desiring what you cannot have, often leading you to do what? Act impulsively, which, like we said before, the law of compulsiveness, which makes you do things just because. So they act impulsively in order to acquire those things. So they do whatever they can in order to get what they want, right? And they'll throw away the long term consequence for the immediate gratification once again. So that's how that feeds into Law 6. Like I said before, the pampered prince and princess are like perfect examples of that toxic trait, which shows into the law of short-sightedness, which also shows up in the Law of 5, which is the law of covetousness. Um, Now, because this intense focus on immediate gratification can overshadow the long-term planning and foresight necessary to avoid short-sighted discussions, or not discussions, but decisions. The compulsive chase after what is just beyond can cause us pretty much to neglect or pretty much cause a neglection of longer term considerations and consequences. Like we typically say, you know what? Because I want this and I want it right now. I don't care what it costs on the back. And I think when I hear about that, I think about music artists when they sign bad deals. And a lot of times it's because the environment or the situation that they've been in, like the process, like, well, I never had it. Like I said before, my situation with money, with not having it, and then when you get it, you're spending it because you don't know how to actually properly manage it. The same way goes for when they sign for that record label, because they never had it. They want that immediate gratification of, now I'm rich, I have the money, I have the girls, I have the cars. So they neglect the fact they're in a bad deal. They didn't read the paperwork, and now they're in a bad situation to where they owe 7 albums. They're barely getting paid. The only way they can get paid is by going on tour. You get a loan, but that loan got to get recouped because that's your advance. An advance is just a loan. You gotta recoup that back. So you're giving up things just for the immediate amount or the money that you really want right now, right? And so going from there, now we're going to talk about the 4 signs of short-sightedness, and then some of the strategies, really maybe 1 or 2 strategies to overcome them, right? So the first sign is unintended consequences. Exactly what it says, unintended consequences. And a perfect example of that is how the Senate. If so, I don't know if any of you are history buffs. So think about Julius Caesar, right? Julius Caesar died from assassination, correct? You can go look it up. He died from assassination on the Senate floor. So what happened was the Senate was plotting against him because to them he was a dictator. He was the emperor of Rome at the time frame, and they was trying to stop a monarchy system or a monarchical system in order to be put in place. So that way he won't have a successor coming from his house or from his lineage. But what they fail to realize is that because they want to return Rome back to the republic. But what they wound up doing was, when they assassinated him, they caused just that. They caused the thing that they was trying to prevent. They caused a monarchical system to be put in place because now he was in power. Now his children or his family, whether his nephew, niece, cousin, whoever that person, they wind up getting in power over time because his family became powerful. So they wind up stepping up and becoming emperor, and then so forth and so forth. So the strategy to overcome this thing is really to reflect on past decisions or look at history and see, okay, look at history and say, hey, look, let me see if I can identify the patterns in the decision making process that I have. So that way, that led me into an unattended outcome. And I use myself as a perfect example. Let's say I told you I didn't use money right. So let's say I borrowed some money, put it towards an event. The event didn't do well, and then I go do the same thing again. No, I'm not gonna do the same thing again because I lost money. How can I pay somebody back something that I lost if I do that again? So I gotta learn from all the decisions that I made, so that way I can make better decisions in the future. And sometimes you don't have to learn from your mistakes. You can learn from somebody else's mistakes, so that way you can then make better decisions in the future. Now, number 2, it's called tactical hell. Um, This pretty much is when you have a disagreement. I'll give you an example. So an example is when I'm gonna use a couple. Let's say you have a couple. Let's say they married, or they're just in a relationship in general, and now they have a disagreement, right? So instead of trying to repair the relationship by taking a temporary pause or whatever from both sides, instead each side is trying to prove their point, which in turn causes everything to just nothing ever gets solved. What happens is that you know, one person feels some type of resentment, the other person feels some type of resentment. People decide to split up, and then there's no repair, and just keep going down the same cycle, right? So some of the strategies in order to combat this is to pretty much focus on strategic planning, right? Strategic planning is a long-term thing; it's not a short-term, which means it's looking at like 10 years plus down the line, and then working your way back to year one, or maybe even to day one, to see, so that way you won't get bogged down in day-to-day tactics or day-to-day activities, right? The other piece is to set long-term goals, and then to align your actions accordingly in order to drive your activities towards that goal. So every activity should be going towards that objective, which then is meeting that mission, right? And then the other part of the strategy you can use is to take a temporary pause, maybe to reposition or to realign yourself. You don't have to keep going because either you agree or you're trying to prove your point. Pause real quick. Let's see. Let's take a step back and see is what we're doing working. If it's not, reposition, realign. It's nothing wrong with that. Just take your time. Same thing I tell myself sometimes: to take my time, step back, let me assess the situation. Number three would be ticker tape fever, and the name in the book is called ticker tape fever, but he got that because of the fact that he was using Wall Street as an example of how when Wall Street first came about, the ticker tape was how the brokers on the floor were all was getting information about stocks going up or down. And from the ticker tape, they was pretty much constantly have their head down at it, looking at it to see if they can buy, sell, or whatever the case may be, because they had a fear of missing out. Something similar, pretty much to minute by minute news cycle. How like CNN and them changed the game to 24-hour news when news used to go off at a certain time, and then that was it. And versus news being on consistently back to back to back. So um, that leads that leads to us pretty much being more impatient. We don't know how to take our time to be patient or to strategize. Instead, we're constantly thinking we're missing out on something when we're not missing out on anything at all, right? So the strategy, or maybe two strategies, I could say, to combat that would be avoid getting swept in the sense of urgency or urgency of the moment, as you would call it, right? Um, don't get caught up in what's on Instagram right away, or if you see something go across your news feed or whatever. You can look at it, but take time to assess it. Don't just jump to conclusions because you see something you haven't made an informed decision or an informed guess or a statement or conclusion to whatever is going on. You just see something and you all of a sudden perturbed or you upset and you don't really truly understand what you're reading or what you're seeing because there's no context to that one little that one little snippet or that little scroll on the news feed or even on your Instagram or on your Facebook, MySpace, YouTube, whatever you got on, whatever you're using, or social media in general. Just take your time, right? The other part was to practice mindfulness, kind of like meditation or just being aware. Practice mindfulness and prioritize tasks based on their long-term impact. And when I see that, that kind of leads into number four, which is lost trivia, right? Um, Lost trivia sounds just like what it sounds pretty much confusing, but I'm gonna break it down for you. So an example would be, let's say it's me and I'm at work, or even could be one of you all. You have a lost sense of priorities, pretty much of your work, due to being or feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of your work. You know, when somebody have like 11 meetings, they're in charge of maybe like 4 or 5 programs. They have 3 additional duties, whatever the case may be. It's a lot of different priorities, especially when you're in middle management. You have people above you, or if you're at a lower level and you had like three supervisors above you or three bosses above you. You don't know really who to prioritize over what because everybody's giving you something to do. And so one of the strategies that I use is the glass ball, rubber ball, and the metal ball. Which one can you drop? You can't drop the glass ball, but you can drop the rubber ball because it will bounce. If you drop the metal ball, it will just sit there, which is nothing wrong with that. But you have to pick one, and the one that you can't drop is the one that will break first. So strategy that the book provide was pretty much assessing your priorities regularly to ensure that you're not focusing on trivial matters. That's why it says lost in trivia. Um, and don't do it at the expense of more significant goals. So do not put least priority things in front of things that are more prominent or that takes more precedence. That goes into a significant goal. So, if you're enjoying this deep dive, pretty much into the laws of human nature, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your engagement really will help us grow and continue these vital conversations. We do this every Thursday at 8 p.m. The next one will be on, I think, the law of defensiveness is the next one, which should be law number 7. And I'm going to keep doing these every Thursday until I got to go somewhere else and handle some other business for the military. But for right now, I'm going to be here every Thursday for you all, regardless if you show up or not. I'm here. I just want to be able to put information out for you, so that way it can help you become better, because it's helping me become better as I'm using it to. The things that we're telling you are the things that I'm putting out, whether or not it's on Thursdays or through our podcast. That when all of us are on there together, these are things that we actually live through. These are some advice that we're giving out to other men, whether you're young, whether you're older, whether you even are age in your 30s or whatever. We want to give that information out to you because we've been in your shoes, so we understand how that feels, right? We know we have relationship issues. We've been in 10+ year marriages right now. We've been in all types of scenarios when it came down to relationships, even with our family, with our wives, with our previous girlfriends, whatever the case may be, with our kids, at work, you know, whatever. So please, just keep us please interact with us. Keep engaging. So like I said before, share, like, follow, subscribe. We definitely want to get to at least 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. If not, it's all right. We're gonna keep going. We're not stopping just because we don't get there. That's one of the goals, but we're gonna continue to push forward because people need to hear this information, because we want to help our brothers out today. So once again, I say thank you for joining us this evening. Remember, the journey towards long-term thinking is a step towards unlocking your full potential. So see you next Thursday when I discuss the law of defensiveness. If you haven't, read the book. If you haven't read the book, please go on YouTube and just listen to the audio book. It's on there for free. Other than that, see you next Thursday. Good night, y'all.